Welcome to the November 2022 Houston County Historical Society meeting, our archive meeting, which we will get started here just shortly. Please silence your phones. I don't know if you'll have any reception down here, but put it on vibrate or you may not even get it. You may not have reception. We've got our flag here. Leanne, if you would lead us in the pledge, you'll all stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, This may sound like a broken record, but the dues are $10 per year per household or $50 per household for lifetime membership. We start a new year in a couple of months. Did everybody get their meeting minutes? Any questions, comments? There's no questions or comments, we will deem the minutes approved. Treasurer's report, Ms. Leah.
Last month, we had income of $270 from, we had a donation in memory of
Janie Clark.
Janie Clark, thank you. Books, we sale of books, sale of prints, and some dues. We had expenses, we're going to, on Thursday actually, I'm going to take a check for $624.40 to the city of Erin. That is the balance of what we had in the earmarked for the bricks for the walkway in Betsy Lagan Park, because they're taking it over. So we have a balance in our checking account of $2,650.28. And our CD is just over $11,400.
Any questions or comments on the treasurer's report? We will deem them approved as well. She mentioned a note or a contribution in memory of Miss Janie Clark. It's from Miss Ann Heitlinger. I have a note here. Please accept the donation being made in memory of Janie Clark. Her son Stephen is a close friend and recommended the Historical Society as a fitting way to honor her name, her memory. So we got $100 from her in Miss Janie Clark's memory. So we're going to let you know about that. Let's see. Old business. Melissa still has some Alice Miles prints available,
But didn't pull them out really quick.
but not the 88 steps. Do you
I've
still
got
have-
one of the 88 steps.
One left, the 88 steps. The other is the courthouse, the old courthouse. Still have cemetery maps, cemetery books, other books. Old business. Donald or Jackie, would you like to update us on the World War II project? Still ongoing?
You want me to do it? Okay. Well, we're still accumulating information and we're starting to get several donations in. We got a parachute the other day. Clint Reynolds donated a parachute that we'll use for the show when we have it in August. We've started a Facebook page and I've tried to send invites out to people, so if you'll look for that and invite your friends to be part of it. There should be an invite to everybody that I'm friends with. And what it's going to be, what it's called, is Houston County 1941-1945, the war years honoring our veterans. And so it's on Facebook, and hopefully we can start some interaction on that. We have put a few of the pictures and stuff that we've got on the flyer that we had at Veterans Day on there, and we'll continue to put some of those on that website as we go along on that. So, but you know, just if we can have information, we'd love to have any information anybody would share on that.
Do you have any of those pamphlets with you? For those that
Sure
did not
do.
get those
Yeah.
in the last little bit.
Yeah.
New business. I have been contacted about the Historical Society sponsoring a ham for the Christmas celebration. I went ahead last year because I didn't know and said that Historical Society would donate 2 hams. Is there any discussion on that? Do you still want to do that? They're about $40 a piece. Do you want to do 2 hams? Do you don't want to do 1 ham?
We did 2 last year.
We did 2 last year. Is there any discussion or motion?
I mean, we donate 2 hams.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Is all in favor?
Aye.
All right, 2 hams donated by the Historical Society to the chamber.
The city of Aaron actually sends out the
Okay,
bills,
City of
but,
Aaron, okay.
yeah. It's done, does everybody know what we're talking about? On Friday, it's the first Friday in December.
December 2nd.
The lighting of
December
the
2nd.
tree.
Lighting of the tree. They'll give away 40 they'll give away half during the day and half that evening.
We are also working on the program for 2023. That sounds like a long ways away, but it's not. We are in search of a vice president. The board members have agreed to remain as board members. All of the officers have agreed to continue. And we need a vice president. So if you're interested or know of anybody that would be interested, we would love to put your name up for nomination. And I'd like to have a board of directors meeting in January about 6 o'clock to work on our program for 2023. That will be in January. That will be our mayor, the state of the county program, but if we can meet at 6 o'clock. Next month, we will also meet at 6 o'clock because we will be having food, be getting food from Clegger's. If you'll bring side dishes and drinks and whatever, we'll get the turkey and dressing, cranberry sauce, rolls, and just have a fellowship, friendship, and that will be at 6 o'clock.
At City Hall?
We're gonna have it here.
Here.
No, I'm sorry. It will be at the Aaron Fellowship Hall. At the Methodist Church, I'm sorry.
And what day? What's the date?
Second Tuesday. Here.
13th.
I got mine right here. Second Tuesday is December the 13th. Okay. 6 o'clock. Hope to see you all there.
Second Tuesday in January is the 10th.
Oh, December. The Christmas dinner.
What was that date?
December the 13th, Tuesday, December the 13th. It'll be at 6 o'clock again. We'll be having food.
And we're at.
The Fellowship Hall at Methodist Church. And Mr. Brown has something he wants to talk to us about.
I
Bill
do?
Brown, yes. The big elevator.
Well, I didn't know that, to be honest with you, but, I think she's talking about the spinning wheel back here, and, it was my great grandmother's, and, it's in excellent shape, and, you can read the plaque. I guess kind of agreed to loan it to the Historical Society, and as far as I know, unless some of my grandchildren want it someday, it'll be here forever. Neither one of my children they were glad for me to do what I did, so I see it being here a long time, long story short. And she died in 1917. And I don't know, I'd give anything to find out where the spinning wheel stayed from 1917 to maybe 1980 or something like that. And I mean, my dad come up with it somewhere. And you know, I never asked him where he got it or whatever, and he passed in 90. And my brother wanted it, and he took it to Charleston, South Carolina, and stayed there till he passed away. And then I got it and brought it home and put it upstairs in my garage. And so we decided to talk to Mr. Bateman and Melissa, and they said they would be glad to have it. So I got a friend of mine, and he and I made the case, and so there it is. And But the wheel itself, I mean, it's just, it amazes me how they made stuff like that back then. It's so perfectly balanced, it'll go this way and, and then it'll come to a stop, it'll roll back this way. It's just perfectly balanced, but you got it, it's all whittled out with a pocket knife, I guess. I don't know how they, and I don't know how it works or whatever, but if you knew what you were doing, the stuff's there. If you go shear a sheep somewhere and bring it in here, you can make some.
Well, we thank you for loaning that to us.
Well, you're very
Is there any other old business or new business we want to talk about? Otherwise, we will turn it over to the archives lady, and she can tell us what's going on in the archives and present her program for tonight. Thank you.
I was in Jackson, Tennessee, a week or so ago. And coming home, and I don't know if y'all have ever been in that from like in West Tennessee, but in Jackson, Carroll County, and that area, but they have a lot of cotton fields over there. So I thought about the spinning wheel when I was driving through there and seeing the cotton fields. And that's really the only place in Tennessee that you're gonna see them. And they were in it must have been harvesting time, because the big bales of them in the fields, kind of like we do hay, and you can see the cotton from the end, they look like giant cotton swabs out into the, so I didn't realize there was cotton like that over there, so. This is our 11th annual open house with the Historical Society. We've been doing this now 11 years since we started the archives. We started doing the open houses because at the time, and I still do from time to time, we try to educate our local county officials and people in the community about what an archives is. Because a lot of people hear the word archives and they don't know what that word is. And so that's why we thought about just having an open house, showing what we have. But we're open every day. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. I leave for lunch between noon and 1, but other than that, we're here. And so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what we do. I get asked all the time, what do you do down there? Especially from like county commissioners, what does she do down there all the time? And so we preserve our local history, and right now, and has been for the last 11 years, we're the only entity with a building that's collecting this stuff. The library is actually purging a lot of their genealogical materials because they need room. And of course, they haven't been able to get a building, so they've had to go to Plan B, and so they've put offices now in the genealogy room. Nothing's been thrown away, but it'll eventually all come over here. And so we will have one facility where anyone who comes to Houston County wants to learn about local history, genealogy, they can come to one place. Because before you had to go to the library and to here, and so that's where we got the display case out in the hall. If you go out in the hall and look to the left, it was actually in the back meeting room. And they were going to move that to somewhere. And I said, we'll take it. I know just where I'm going to put it. And with that, we got a lot of wonderful items. In that display case is Rachel Maddox's original typewriter that she used to write her books. How many of you do not know who Rachel Maddox is? Oh. Rachel Maddox is a very well-known, I don't know how much she is today, but well-known famous author from Houston County. Her and her husband lived in Tennessee Ridge. She wrote several books. A couple of them were made into Hollywood movies. Walk in the Spring Rain was made into a movie, and it starred Ingrid Bergman and I can never remember the actor's name. Anthony Quinn. Thank you. And I watched the movie, and as movies go, it's okay. It was made in the 70s, I think. But anyway, it was supposedly about a true story of an affair that happened in Houston County. So I've heard some people mention names, and my husband's own family has who they think it was, and so. And then Orchard Children, which is a true story about her struggle to adopt children. It was also made into a movie. So her original typewriter that she wrote these books on. We have it, so it's very, very, something we were glad to have. So we preserve our local history. We also preserve local families' history. We try to have as much genealogical material available for researchers. Genealogy is, I've seen statistics that it's like the second most popular hobby in the United States, with gardening being number one. I don't garden at all, I have a black thumb, so I don't know why anybody wants to garden, but genealogy and finding your history or DNA testing and all that stuff, and so we get a lot of requests for records for family history. So that's why it's important, you're gonna hear me talk about donating records, and I know that I say that every time we get together, but it's true. That's really the only way that a lot of times we're gonna know a lot of our history and be able to share it with other people. Another thing that we do here is that we're a teaching facility, believe it or not. We have had children that have come through here. We have had high schoolers and college that have come through to learn about certain aspects of our community. Just this past fall, when they had fall break, I loved it because 2 sets of grandparents brought their grandchildren to the museum. Many of you have seen our new sign, so they see the sign and they say, oh, we've been wanting to come to see the museum. And I had people come in and say, well, I didn't know we had a museum. I said, well, we've had one for 11 years, we just could afford a sign, so. But we have college students that actually come here to write papers, to do their dissertations on, mainly, I've had 2 do it on the Wells Creek Basin, but also on the lime kilns, the iron furnaces, the railroad that came through here, the Irish railroad workers that came through here, Danville, TVA, and the flood in Danville. And so I actually am out there in kind of communication with many of our local colleges, offering what we have so that their students can use our facility for research. We also answer questions. You may not think that we get this, but we answer questions almost on a daily basis from the public, from the newspaper, who was doing a story and someone told them so, they call us and ask us, well, do you have any records about that, or can you tell us about that, or do you have any information about that? And so some of the more recent ones, many of you may know that Mr. Jerome Parchman is our new president of our Chamber of Commerce, and so I get a call from the newspaper, is he the first African-American president of the Chamber of Commerce? So, you know, those kinds of questions. At the last election, I get a phone call, is Teresa Alsbrooks the first woman highway superintendent? You know, and so we keep information and records about all the officials going back to the beginning, and so we can go and look and say, yes, she was. You know, there's a church revival going on over here at the old Bells building. Well, about a month or so ago, I get a phone call from the newspaper saying that they're researching about this revival coming in, and they understand that there was a revival back in the past. It was only supposed to have lasted a couple of days, but it lasted for weeks and weeks and weeks. And so they said, can you find information on that? A lot of times they don't have dates. So I have to say, well, can you narrow it down to like 10 years or something? So I could not find anything on that. And then today, I get a phone call today. Those of you that attended the veteran service on Friday, and Austin P, and you have to help me, Austin P had inducted some, go ahead.
They have a Hall of Fame for military who were, I believe, who were professors?
I'm not sure.
No, just who graduated from Austin P and who were military veterans, yes.
And this was their inaugural inductees, you know, and then the gentleman who spoke Friday, what's his name?
Dewey Browder.
Yes, he was inducted. And also, O.S. Uffelman from Houston County was also inducted. And so they're evidently going to do a story. So they called, because they had talked to Dr. Manoa Uffelman, his daughter, about some letters that he had sent home to be published in the newspaper. So she says, do you have any of those letters? So I go digging into their 1940s newspapers, and I find one of the letters, and it's signed, as ever, O.S. Uffelman. It was printed, and this is an original Houston County Times from April 27, 1945. So I was able to find one, and I think there was like 6 altogether. Manoa was going to share within what she has, but I was able to find one out of the surviving newspapers that we have. So we get those questions all the time. We get questions from the public, research questions. I had a lady call me yesterday looking for a photograph of her mother in the yearbooks. We have yearbooks here in this bookcase. It was she said 1962, and I looked at 1962 and she wasn't there, so I thought, well, let's try different years. And so I found her in 1963. And her name was Laura Newman. Her mother's name was Laura Newman, if anybody remembers her Laura Newman. Laura Elizabeth Newman, because in the yearbook she was Elizabeth Newman. So I was able to share copies of that with her. So what are we doing to preserve the history? Well, first and foremost, we accept donations of records and materials. You know, as a county archive, our number one job is to take care of the county government records. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. And that includes court records, that includes legislative body records, deed records, tax records, things like that. But for history and for genealogy, we also preserve historical records and genealogical records. And the only way we can get those is if people donate them. They're not generated by the government. They're generated by families and individuals. And so we do that by collecting documents and photographs and artifacts, as you can see around the room. We are also very, very much involved in what I call repatriating records. A lot of times we'll get in a box of records or something that's donated, and in those records is something that doesn't belong here. It has nothing to do with Houston County. But a lot of times I have to accept things like that because I don't want people to think we don't take things, so then they won't bring them. So what I do is I reach out to other archives, and I tell them what I have and ask them if they'd like to have it. And so some of the things that we've been able to repatriate or send back to other archives, we found a restaurant menu from 1911 for a restaurant in Nashville. And their archivist, Ken Feith, is a good friend of mine, and so I contacted him and we returned that to the Metro Nashville Archives. And so they have it in their collection. Many of you may remember that we discovered a very large photograph of a hotel, of a building, I think it was a hotel, in New York. And the way we found that was we had a framed item, International Order of the Odd Fellow item, donated to us. And me knowing what people do, they put pictures behind pictures, they put things on top of other things, and the materials was not archival anyway, so I took it apart, and there had been a piece of fabric around this board, and I took the fabric off, and behind it was the photograph. And it dated, that building had actually burned in 1943, and so it was before then. So I contacted the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society, and they were glad to get it. So I boxed it up and I sent it to them. So that got back to them. Right now, I'm actually working on a collection of records I'm trying to get back to Massachusetts. I don't have them here. It's a box of records for a Rufus Choate. And if you go home and Google Rufus Choate in Ipswich or Essex County, Massachusetts, he was really well known, but there was like 4 of them with the same name. They're all in the same family. Liz Bonamore, that works at the newspaper, her family lived in his home in Massachusetts for many years. They found these records in the home, and when they ended up moving here, those records just came right along with them. So Liz's sister works in the mayor's office, and she brought these records to me. She said, you know, we can't throw these away. Would you like to have them? I looked at them. I said, yeah, I would love to have them. These records date back to the 1700s. Some of them are even dated before we were a country. So as much as I want to keep them because I love old records, I'm reaching out, working with an archivist at Vanderbilt, actually, who has ties to Massachusetts, and she's helping me find an archive that would be willing to take the records and take care of them. So those have been fascinating records to look at. One other job that I have is to promote our archives, and I do that every month by coming to the society, talking about what we're doing, bringing examples of things that we have. But I also, if you've noticed, if you get our newspaper, I try to get stuff put in the newspaper about the archives, what we're doing, things that are going on. And I post a lot to social media, and I speak. I speak to historical and genealogical societies across the country. I say my night job, at night and on weekends, because I do it kind of as a side job as well. But everything that I use in my presentations comes from here. So I get to tell everybody about Houston County history. And so our little archives in our little county is known across the United States, which is great. I love it. So we do the Today in the Archives post on Facebook. I haven't done it in a few weeks, so I need to get back to that. But we need to we're letting people know about that we're here. If you notice, if you came in the front door, the time capsule, many of you might remember back when they did the time capsule for Centennial Mall in Nashville. I believe it was back in the 90s or 80s, I can't remember. And for some reason, Houston County did two. We sent one to Nashville to the Centennial Mall. Every county did, and they buried them at Centennial Mall. So we have one buried there. But I don't know who decided to do a second one and put it in a case and just have it there. But that time capsule is in the entryway of the courthouse, and with a list of what's in the time capsule. So it's an oddity, so it's something we'd like to share. We also have displays. We have a display at the Houston County Coffee Company. We change it out every couple of months, and then we have one at the Traditions First Bank. So that also gets our archives and museum known. And so wherever I go, wherever I speak, I'm constantly talking about our archives and our history. I was on, where was I? Oh, I was on a meeting, and actually it was a personal thing last night online. And there was a gentleman on there that was in Knoxville. And I said, oh, well, I live in Tennessee too. And so I got to tell him where we were, about the museum, and he was very interested. It had nothing to do with history, but he was very interested. Said he'd come this way. So wherever I'm at, I'm always talking about it. One of the newer things that we have started doing that we need to produce a flyer for, I told Lee we need to produce a flyer for this so we can advertise it better. We're starting to offer digitization services. We have received grant money, and we have purchased this particular scanner, which is a large scanner. Scans more than 8.5 by 11, more than the legal size. It does 17 by 14, I believe. We have scanners that will scan slides, photo negatives, and we also can scan any documents and photographs. We did a digitization project for a lady in Waverly. Kind of the same thing. They bought this house from a family. There's records in it. So they kept the records, but they wanted them digitized. So we did that for her. It took us a couple of months. And because we're a county entity, we cannot solicit donations, but her and her husband gave us a $1,200 donation. That's what helped purchase the sign. So for that, she gave us a donation. We can digitize DVDs to digital. Miss Leah has actually done that with our oral histories. We have oral histories of just individual citizens, but we also have our World War II oral histories. They've been digitized, they're digital, and if you come to the archives, you can sit and watch them on our Patron computer. And so I was very, very glad to get that. You know, we were told when CDs and DVDs came out, oh, these are going to last forever. So we were glad to get those off of those mediums, and we now have them digital on the computer. We also now, which I have not played with it yet, but we have equipment now where we can digitize or get things off of 4.5-inch floppy disks. I don't know about you, but my parents were wonderful about putting everything on a 4.5-inch floppy disk, including every single picture that they ever took. So I have 2 big gallon-sized bags filled with 4.5-inch floppy disks that I have to transfer to another medium. So, next, what we're going to try to do, which we believe we have the equipment, I don't know about part of this, We are gonna go from VHS to either DVD or straight to digital. There's equipment out there, you can go from VHS to DVD, but really with DVDs going out, we wanna go straight to digital. And I was looking at information today where you can go straight from VHS to digital. So that's kind of on the horizon for us to do that. We're trying to get all of the old medium stuff, like what you have in your closets, to digital. Because then we can put it in the cloud, we can put it on our computers, external hard drives that can be saved better. And so if you have any of this, and it has old records, old photographs, even if it's just your family photographs, contact us, see if we can digitize those for you. We'll hand you back your original DVDs or whatever you've got, and then we'll give you a thumb drive with the digital on it. So we can do that. One of the things that I like to tell people is that we cannot preserve our history or tell our history if it's hidden away. If you go to other archives, you're going to see, especially if they're not a museum, you're not going to see what you see in this room. You're going to see just tables and chairs, and what they have is in another room in the back somewhere that you can't even get to because it's in boxes. So when we started this archives, I was determined that this was going to be a hands-on archives. I wanted people to come in and see what we had, be able to even touch it, pick it up. You know, the kids that came the other day had a lot of fun looking at what we had, because I don't think you can understand your history if you can't see it and touch it and feel it. So that's why we have all this. But some notable donations that we've had over the years. First and foremost, when we started the archives, we wouldn't have really a lot of what we have if it wasn't for the Historical Society. When we started in 2010, I believe it was 2013, the Historical Society had been collecting documents, photographs, and everything since 1983, and it was being stored in the room across the hall. So when we started the archives finally, they agreed to hand over everything that they had to the archives so we could archive it. And so that started us off. The Brown family giving us the spinning wheel on loan. Hopefully it'll stay here forever. You know it will, Phil. And local artist artwork. I've talked to other archivists across the state, and I think we're really the only ones that we have gotten so much local artist artwork in our archives. I can remember several years ago, in 1 week, I got like 6 pieces. It was like that was what's happening that week. This is actually our latest one. We got it last month at the meeting from Miss Susie Askew. This is by Lillian Askew. So she did that. There's another small one there and another one back there that she gave us. So we are all about local artists. I believe that it's just very important to preserve and recognize our local artists. And not really, and it doesn't matter what kind of medium it is. A lot of you see the paintings, but I want you to look at the ship in the house. I mentioned this at the last meeting, but I didn't bring the ship with me. This, to me, is a local artist item as well. This was done by William Hankins, or some of you may remember him as Rabbit Hankins, that was his nickname. And he made both of these items in the 1970s from matchsticks, well, matches. When you look at them, they look like those flat matches that were in books, not like matchsticks that were in boxes. And he did it while he was serving time at the state penitentiary. Now, if you know anything about, if you've ever been in the art world, they call it prison art. And it's very, very well known and very desirable. But anyone that I've talked to that knew him, first of all, they say they can't believe he did that. Did you know him? Did you know him? Yeah. Another thing they would say to me is they would say, oh, he was such a nice guy. And I said, well, what was he doing in the penitentiary? I said, well, when he drank. I said, well, okay. But the Hankins family actually donated it. And so they were very happy that it's going to be on display because they wanted people to see it. I just think it's a work of art. The little house there, if you look at it, it has carpet and wallpaper in it too.
Oh, wow.
And all the matchsticks, or the matches, have been used. And so a couple people that have seen him said, you mean they allowed them to smoke in prison? And And I said, well, that was the 70s. I can remember being in high school and we had smoking porches for students, so. So yeah, so I can just see him asking his fellow inmates, you know, when you get done with your matches, let me have them, because he's building this boat in this house. So to me, that is wonderful art as well. And then the post office store, which is behind Donald, many of you have seen that and know about that. It was found at yesterday's Treasures Today. It's an antique store in Dixon on Main Street. It was donated, purchased and donated anonymously. But we weren't sure if it was correct, if it was the door or what. And so a few weeks after we got it, I don't think it was named.
Jimmy Coakley.
Jimmy Coakley, who was 99 at the time, walked in unannounced down here and looked at the door and he said, yep, that's it, that's the door. I don't think it was a couple weeks later he died. So we got able to get that confirmation. So, and that door was actually, Bell's Florist over here used to have the post office in it. So right there on that corner by, you look across, you see the bank. That's where the door was. So we were very excited to get that. And then over here, we have a raffle tumbler. That was given to us by Sam and Judy Fazell from the Red Shed. He found it in Paris, Tennessee. And he was told that it was the raffle tumbler from Mobley's store. He said during the week, if you would shop at Mobley's store and get your receipts, like we all get receipts when we go to the store, you could throw your receipt in that tumbler. And every Friday evening, it was a thing to go to Mobley's store, and they would turn that thing, pull out one of the receipts, and whatever the amount on the receipt was is how much you got.
Oh, wow.
So that would encourage you to come and shop. So we were very, very happy to get that. We've had so many wonderful records donations, I can't name them all. We have had photographs donated galore, real, actual photographs and digital photographs. We encourage people that, you know, I understand you're not ready to let go of all your items yet, but if you could digitize them and send it to us by email, or bring it to us, we'll digitize it and hand it back to you. Because we need to preserve what's on those documents, what's on those photographs. We purchase things off of eBay. And I just purchased something which we don't have yet. It's supposed to be here Thursday. It's a picture postcard dated from 1911. It is postmarked Erin from 1911. It is a little brief note, and it's to Miss Effie Broom of Palmyra, Tennessee. But the picture postcard is of a young man on a horse in a creek, which tells me, and I'd send it to a photograph expert, and I said, you know, photo postcards are either real photos that someone's put on a postcard, or they're produced for tourism, and they're not really real people or real places. And she told me, no, this is a real postcard. So now my job's going to be to figure out who is the person on the horse, and where in Houston County is this creek. So that will be next meeting, I'll tell you about it. One of the more wonderful, well, they're all wonderful, but more wonderful donations we've gotten is from the McKinnon family. I have yet to digest everything that was in there. We will be using some of it for the military program in 2023. But that was just wonderful. When we have families, especially the families like the McKinns that have been here so long, and they are so, to me, historic, when they decide to donate to the archives, it means so much to us, because not only are they preserving their family history, but they were so involved in the community that helps preserve the community history. So there's some other families that are really well known, that Houston County, founders of the county, been here a long time, that I talked to recently, that I hope to get some more things from them as some of their houses sell or their businesses close. And it's just the way it happens, but hopefully we'll get some more. And I don't know if any of you saw it when you came in, but did you notice the theater seats in the hallway? Those were stored up in the old jail, and there's more where that came from, but that's all I got, because I don't have any other place to put them. But I need to know from those who were here, who can remember, did these come out of the theater, or did these come out of the auditorium at the old high school? So think
I
about
would
that.
say they've got numbers on them. I don't believe they come out of the theater.
You don't think they come out of the theater?
I don't remember numbers on them.
Okay.
And they're too good of seats, look like to me, from what I remember in the city.
They were here in Houston County somewhere. And so, I don't know, does anybody remember, I know we had a community house where they would have concerts and like people from Grand Ole Opry come. Did they have bleachers or theater seats in there?
Bleachers.
Bleachers, that's what I was thinking, because they also played basketball games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So.
wrestling matches.
And wrestling, I've heard about the wrestling, yes.
Yeah,
They even roller skated there sometimes.
yeah.
Roller skated, yes.
And had movies on Saturday night.
Yeah. So we have the theater seats. So I don't know where they came from, so we gotta figure that out. So, another thing that we do in our archives, and I'm gonna wrap this up, is we actually, if you come in here on any given day, and especially if Leah's here, you're gonna see us digging into records, doing research. Because one of the things that happens when you're working on any kind of records is that you'll come across something, you'll go, what is that? And then you start thinking, well, wait a minute, why is the, you start getting all these questions and then you have to research it. And so that's happened to us more than once. And there's been times when we've stopped all work and all we're doing is researching whatever it is we're researching. Some of the projects that are actually still ongoing, I've told you about, but we're still researching them. The Hensley School and the Rosenwald School, I'm still researching them. Because I would like to try to get historical sign. I'm also still researching Professor R.B. Macklin and Mary Nurburne's lawsuit against Houston County School Board. There's still more to learn about that. The one that is at the top of my list that I'm dying to know more about is the Houston College. I'm stuck. We can document that college from the very first stones they put in the ground in 1898 all up to 1906. And then the house that's there, which we know is the Roby House, was built in 1911. So between 1906 and 1911, something happened to the college, and we cannot figure out what happened to the college. I have searched newspaper after newspaper. I can't. So we're not going to give up, though. We're going to find out. Many of you will remember when I talked a lot about the Midway Saloon and the smashing of the Midway Saloon. That has several aspects to it. If you remember, I was reading a newspaper article and they mentioned the mayor of Midway. This is how it starts. And I went, mayor of Midway? Midway was not a city, it's a street. So I started researching and found out that this gentleman had Midway incorporated like a city and deemed himself the mayor of Midway. And so there were some criteria. You had to have so many houses and different things, and he threw up these really shabby houses and ended up, the townspeople, when you see the list of people who did this, it is all the movers and shakers of Houston County. That the Bucos, the Roshers, all of them, there was like 20 or 30 of them, went into his saloon, because that's what he wanted. He wanted a saloon, and you could not have a saloon unless it was an incorporated city. And smashed up his saloon, all of his whiskey barrels, and took him and threw him in jail. Well, he sued them and went all the way to the Supreme Court, Tennessee Supreme Court. So, yeah, that was what I'm still looking into. I'm also looking into the Stewart-Houston County Fair. Many don't know that the two counties had their fairs together up until a certain point. This is probably late 1800s, early 1900s. Finding a lot of newspaper articles about this. There was one instance where some of the Home Guard military were coming to the fair and they got into a lot of trouble on the train. So you find all kinds of wonderful things. Many of you may have seen in the newspaper the story that I wrote about William Robert Nichols, the one-armed gentleman who built his home here. He's another fascinating person that I want to know more about. He was an educator in Houston County for 25 years, and he was African American when, at the time, African Americans didn't get to do a whole lot. But he taught in the schools. he built his house. The old articles talk about how he would go down to the sawmill, get the lumber, put it on his shoulder, and he'd go back up there and build his house. So that's interesting. How many of you remember the Tennessee Ridge ski area?
Oh, I think I remember.
I came across that when someone posted on Facebook an old rusty piece of metal that is still there, and someone says, this is some of the remnants of the ski in the Tennessee Ridge. I'm like, the what? And so I've talked to the McWhorter sisters,
Yeah.
and they actually brought me a pad of, it's called the Tennessee Ski Area, where you had to sign in and sign, I guess, sign your rights away in case you got hurt or something. A whole pad full. So I'm still working on that. And the last one I'm working on is the Morris Dillard parole. This is one of those where I ran across the document on the City of Erin letterhead, where all of these people from Houston County signed it, sending it to the governor, asking him for a parole.
Pardon.
A pardon. Well, he actually got paroled. He never got pardoned. And I thought, why would all these people, really well-known people, store owners, and I thought, okay, why do they want him out of jail? When you look at what he did, he broke into the Bunnell store, stole a coat, pair of pants, pair of shoes, pair of socks, a shirt, about $6 worth of stuff. This was in late 1800s. And he was sentenced to 3 years in the state penitentiary for $6. And the first person that signed this letter was Mr. Bunnell, the store owner. And I thought, wait a minute. So I have been researching him as well. He ended up going, he got his parole. He was paroled from jail a little bit early. Came back here, but he ended up going to Florida, and he died under suspicious circumstances, his obituary says. He worked on the coast. He was like a fisherman or something, a professional fisherman. So another interesting story. So, but there's so much more in these records that we haven't even seen yet. When you get done, please walk around, go into the vault if you would like. It's open. A lot of the books that are in there have not been indexed. They've not been microfilmed. They've not even been looked at closely. There's so many more stories to be found. So if you have an event or a person or a family or something, a story that you want researched, let us know. Let me and Leah know. We love to do research on stuff like that. So with that, that's all I've got. Just thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for all those that support our archives. Yes.
I'd like to give you a little bit more history on the spinning wheel.
Well, sure, go
I
ahead.
didn't say much about that, but I've got to think about it. My great-grandmother was a McDonald, and as far as I know, that's where McDonald Cemetery come from, down on Waverly Road. And she married Benjamin Brown, and which was my great-grandfather. And I think they had the spinning wheel, it's before the Civil War. They both died around, like I said, 1915 or 1917. And I think they were the first two that's buried up there. And then, of course, my grandfather, Reed Brown, was like their ninth child or something. And the original Benjamin Brown, half of Houston County came out of that couple. And they lived up at the old Tomlinson place. But back to the spinning wheel, I'd give anything, to find out where it was all those years. And before Dad got a hold of it. But great-grandfather Benjamin Brown was in the Civil War. And the story on him was he was fought for the South and was down in Mississippi somewhere. And they sent him home on furlough. And the Yankees captured him and took him to Illinois. And so after the war, he was released, but the South had indicted him or whatever because he was AWL. They never knew that he was captured, they just thought he didn't show back up, you know, they wanted him to come home and bring a fresh horse back, and, so that's sort of who owned the spinning wheel, and as far as I know, I always, as a kid, that was the Mahoney place, and the Mahoney boys still live there close, but the old house was right there where you turn up the hill to go to the cemetery. And as far as I know, that's where they lived at some point.
Yeah,
And I think that was where the McDonald's lived.
okay.
And, but that's where his, you know, McDonald's cemetery got its name. They're all Browns up there, or the originals, but I'm assuming they named it McDonald's. I think it would have been on their farm, so.
Yeah.
But, as far as I know, the spinning wheel, it goes back to like, you know, Civil War,
That's great, that's great.
and,
Well, we appreciate having it.
And
Well,
we
I'm glad you
appreciate
got it.
you. You do such
Oh,
a great
thank
job.
you, thank you.
I can't imagine that there's another archivist and historian doing as good a job as you
No,
are.
no, there are better ones out there, but my main thing is that search your closets, search your drawers, whatever you got. Just, if you're not ready to give it up yet, bring it by and let us scan it so we can have it. But there is so much more. We have a very large photograph collection that needs attention. It needs to be digitized. It needs to have people look at it, identify, because a lot of people are not identifying these photographs. So, I'll get back with you.
We will adjourn, hope to see you in December at 6 o'clock for turkey and dressing. Ms. Kay French is scheduled to give a program, and I have not checked with her, but even if she doesn't do a program, we'll have a good time. Hope to see you in December. Thank you.
thank you.